Hey team, so today we're going to break down the deadlift a little bit. We're going to go from the ground up, and the reason we're going to be going through these is we want to make the deadlift as easy as possible, making sure that we're using the right muscles. And yeah, it's going to be difficult, but it shouldn't be sore. One of the main things that are going to be a sign that we need to adapt how we do our deadlift is if we're feeling like a horizontal pain across our back, and we're not feeling like a vertical all the way up and using like all the muscles. If you're feeling it across here, generally that means that we're getting something wrong just a little bit. So here are going to be quite a few adaptations and things that we can do to make it a lot easier. So first up, we're going to work from our feet. So our shoe choice is going to have a big impact on what it is we do. We want to be trying to transfer as much force and have as much stability in our feet through. So if I'm here, bum back, coming down, lifting up, I'm wanting all the force, because my legs are pushing through the ground, I want all that force to be kept coming up and through, and me be able to lift that bar. If I was wearing a really squidgy shoe, then potentially that force is going to get dissipated a wee bit. So some people are wearing running shoes when they're doing their deadlifts, and that squidgy shoe is going to make everything all wobbly, and it's going to make it way harder to hold tight. So yes, you can do it, but it does just decrease the ability for us to be able to hold everything steady, solid, especially as we get heavy and we do our strength weeks. We want to be looking for trying to go pretty stable. So if we don't have a flat shoe like a Converse or like a kind of a weightlifting shoe that's designed to make that force transfer easier, what we can do is we can just take our shoes off and we can just go barefoot. For a deadlift, this can be really good. You can get a good grounding on the floor, and it also helps just free up the feet a wee bit, which can really help with our proprioception a little bit. So that would be our first one. From there, we're gonna kind of look at the movement pattern. So we want to be able to make sure that for most people, we can, with a relatively straight leg, that we can touch below our knees with a straight back. If we're gonna struggle to do that, we're going to have to make some adaptations on our deadlift, because we're not going to be able to go from the ground up. So we're going to have to maybe do a sumo deadlift. And the reason that some people might have to do a sumo deadlift is that they're really tall or that they're really tight. So it means that you become smaller. So if my legs are close together, I need to reach further to the ground. If my legs are wider, it makes it a little bit easier to get down to that ground. So for those of you that are really tall or really, really tight, that could be a really good movement just to make it a wee bit easier. And coming through, just like that. One of the other options that we could potentially be doing there is we could be raising the bar up, again, to make that range of movement a little bit smaller, and it makes it a little bit easier for us to be able to lift up the weight. So I could stick a couple of 10 plates underneath, and by sticking those 10 plates underneath, I'm just raising that bar again. So some people might have to start by doing both a sumo deadlift as well as having their legs out nice and wide, bum back, coming through and up. That just makes it a little bit easier, means we can have control. And from the side angle, I'm going to go off the plates here, but what we want to be making sure we're doing is when we are deadlifting, whether it's sumo or conventional, is that we can go bum back, coming down, and we can get tight. If we are having to pull from this position and a rounded back, then we're going to put load in a position that isn't advantageous. So we're looking at big tall chest, snapping the bar in two. So by doing this, we're driving our elbows in. That's going to create tension through our back, makes our abs work a little bit harder as well, stabilization so that our lower back doesn't take the brunt of it. And then also looking at driving the knees out. By driving the knees out, you're going to make your glutes work way harder, so your bum cheeks are going to work harder, and it's going to make it much easier to keep stable when we're pushing through. So bum back, coming through, I am snapping the bar, I am pushing my knees out into my elbows, I'm taking a big deep breath in, I'm squeezing nice and tight, leading with my chest, exploding all the way up. Bum back, down the shins. The bar should pretty much be dragging up our shins. The further away that gets from our centre of gravity, the harder it's going to be. So if that bar's coming away out, it's going to make the weight heavier. Try and hold next time you're in, try and hold a 5 kilo here, and hold a 5 kilo out here. It's going to be way harder the further away it is from that kind of lever point. So always trying to keep the bar as close as possible to us as well. If all these things are potentially still leaving us with a wee niggle, then one of the other things that we can really focus in on is our breathing. So doing something called the Valsalva maneuver is probably the one time in the gym that we want to be making sure that we have a big round belly, because we want to get our air in brace nice and tight and squeeze, you'll physically feel a tightness in your abs. And whenever you're moving with the bar, when it's heavy, you want to be having that Valsalva maneuver. That's going to create stability all the way around our core, so front and back. And it's going to create this kind of vacuum around that spine and create stability. So we want to be doing big deep breath in, fill in the air in there, hold it all the way up. I could breathe out here, or I could hold it the whole time. If I did breathe out, I'd breathe back in again, squeeze tight, bum back, down the shins, and work on that movement. If we're not 100% sure if we're getting that, one of the biggest things that we can do is we can lie on the ground. We can grab a wee band, so I'd go grab a wee red band. And we'll make sure that we're getting that brace properly without a round in the lower back. So if I was to grab a band, lie on the ground and put this under the small of my back, when I breathe in, I should be able to hold that band on the ground. I don't know if you'll be able to see that from the picture. I might need to do a wee video later on. But we want to be lying back on the ground, and when we breathe in, we should be squeezing our lower back into the ground so that band doesn't go. If I had an arch, I'd know because the band wouldn't be tight underground. So coming through, holding tight, squeezing our abs, making sure that that's there. That's a good foundation for that. We could potentially hold the band, do a glute bridge, come back, try and brace again, make sure that we can hold that tight, because that's going to create that stability around there. So that's just a couple of things that we can do with the deadlift just to make it a wee bit easier. Always asking Dan, asking myself, but if we are in a busier class, or potentially it doesn't feel too sore in the day and then we forget about it when we come around like 2-3 weeks away from it, then it's worthwhile kind of looking at these things. That's all for now, and yeah, if you have any questions, just pop them through.